I'm Cedric Porter, and today I'm discussing climate change with David Stacey. David is the Commercial Director at GrowHow and also the Fertiliser Sector Chairman at the Agricultural Industries Confederation. David, how important an issue is climate change to UK farmers?
Oh, it's a huge issue, and I think what's important to establish right at the outset, of course, is that the important greenhouse gas that we're talking about are both CO2 and N2O. And bearing in mind that both of these elements are released in the carbon and nitrogen cycles, there's very little we can do about that. You could argue that they're hardwired, if you like, into the whole cycle. What we can do is we can try to mitigate some of those issues, and that's really what we have to set our task on. The last thing we should do, and last thing we should consider, is to export the problem. The UK agriculture has an enviable record of leading in environmental awareness and environmental development. On top of that, coming together over the last couple of years has been a task force led jointly by the AIC, the NFU and the CLA, and they published a document which was headed the solution and not the problem. And I think if we focus on the issues that are raised there and the objectives that are raised in that document, we can find some solutions.
What evidence of climate change have you and your teams seen on UK farms?
That's a difficult one, because I think any small change in the season can be easily ascribed to a climate change label. But I don't think that's the issue, really. I think we're not here to debate whether climate change is a reality or not. I think it's on world agendas, government agendas, and I think it's an accepted principle now that we've got to do something about it. So it's not healthy to debate whether it's an issue, but what we have to do is to look forward to see how we can develop solutions. Already we are seeing farmers taking proactive action. I have to say, I think this is led more by high prices of energy and fertiliser, perhaps than really a true view of climate change.
And what processes has GrowHow put in place to ensure that the manufacture of fertiliser is as efficient as possible?
In the manufacture of ammonium nitrate, we use natural gas for two things. Basically, one is a feedstock and the other is an energy source. So if we were to use that inefficiently, it would be commercial suicide. So over the years we've taken improvements of both processes to actually optimise the use of gas in the system. And it's fair to say now that manufacturing plants, particularly in Western Europe, are now at probably the theoretical maximum energy efficiency that you can possibly get. That's not to say that we've finished. For example, GrowHow UK has just announced a capital investment plan, just over £12 million, to increase scrubbing of our prilling tower, which will improve emissions to air. That's one thing. The second thing, and far more far-reaching, is the investment that we're planning into N2O abatement, and that will take longer, it will be more costly, but we will be able to reduce our N2O emissions by up to 60%, and that will be a huge contribution. The penalty for not doing that is actually quite enormous, because by 2013 we will be having to comply with EU emissions trading schemes, and in the absence of any investment, to put a number on it, GrowHow UK could face a bill in excess of £50 million simply to buy the credits. To pass that through to farmers would equate to about £50 a tonne. So we can't do nothing.
Back on the farm, what can farmers do to assess the impact their fertiliser regimes have on climate change?
Farmers have a specific problem, of course, in that in agriculture CO2 and N2O are both released as part of carbon and nitrogen cycles. So whatever they do, they're going to incur greenhouse gas emissions. But they can mitigate the issue, and that is by having a good, sound nutrient plan. we need to look at this in a holistic way. Fertiliser or ag chem or animal feed in isolation is not the solution. By working together we could get a more robust and sustainable solution. What I mean by that is feed manufacturers looking at animal nutrition together with science and technology are currently working hard to find the solutions to methane gas production. That's step one. Step two is the farmer is then left with organic fertilisers. And for far too long it's been seen as a problem to dispose of. We now see it as an asset. And to use the asset in accordance with a properly fertilised crop, balancing the crop requirement, starting with RB209 as the leaflet to start the whole process, and then leading through from there with good sound advice from a facts-trained advisor, then we can build up a soil nutrient plan, a plant nutrient plan, which will optimise fertiliser usage.
And what advice can farmers get from you on reducing their impact on climate change?
Yes, we've developed at GrowHow a process whereby the farmer will start with RB209. He'll take advice from a facts-trained advisor. He'll then take account of organic manures he's going to use. He has the facility to use one of our Encompass programs, which will create a nutrient management plan for him. He can then take it on to two extra levels of sophistication, and one of those will be the having his organic manures analysed, so he knows exactly what's in there. And then the next element is to have a deep core or an N-min sample to actually show what the mineralizable nitrogen available is to the crop. In this way he can fine-tune the fertiliser regime that he requires. This advice is available from GrowHow. We have trained over 100 fieldsmen in our techniques and in the agronomy, and they are further supported by a head office agronomy desk supported by specialist grassland and arable agronomists.
And how is the fertiliser manufacturing industry working with other organisations to tackle climate change?
It's very clear that we can't work in isolation, and the AIC is bringing together the task force alongside the NFU and the CLA and the European fertiliser manufacturers as well to actually look at the holistic way of solving this problem. We are involved actively in that task force, and we are working very closely with farmers to optimise their use of fertiliser. One thing that I could say is I would draw attention to any farmer who wanted to look beyond what I'm saying here would be to access the Farming Futures website, which would give him a very good insight to what practical farmers are doing on their farms to mitigate climate change.
David, thank you very much for putting fertiliser use and climate change into context. If you want to learn more about climate change, then see other parts of the FWI website.